The Sin virus is rapidly spreading its tendrils across the city. Your mission, burn it out. Purge it at absolutely any cost. Good hunting, sir.
I'm gonna be honest with you kids, I had not actually played episodes 2 and 3 of Turbo Overkill, even though episode 2 and the first part of episode 3 had been released already. I covered episode 1 before in a roundup and said, Turbo Overkill rules. Yeah, I said that, and then I said later that it still ruled because I didn't, at the time, want to make another video on it. Because how much could the game have changed in episode 2? Okay, so you remember when I said I hadn't finished episode 2 or 3. What if I told you that I was so goddamn busy, because of the insane flood of FPS games that kept coming out, that I didn't even finish episode 1. I played through most of it, but then, you know, I had to play something else. At the time, it was Postal Brain Damaged. So over the last week or so, I went through the whole thing again, and I get it, kids. I didn't realize how hard the game was going, and I didn't expect it to easily surpass all of my expectations. If you're sick of Civvy talking about new releases, yeah, you know what, so am I. After this, I'm getting back to the Stalker series and starting my work on Halloween episodes. Hope y'all like some Necrovision. But if I'm gonna end this boom shoot blockbuster summer, where we've had Slayers X and oh god, and a Rot remaster and Zorch and Trepang 2 and a Medieval The Black Labyrinth, which is also really good, you should play that. If I'm gonna end this summer of endless action, I'm gonna end it talking about the absolute fucking king of these releases. Turbo Overkill makes most other shooters look like a text adventure, and Apogee, one of the video gaming shepherds of my youth, returning to publish a game that goes hard, then when it's done going hard, goes even harder. It's the most over-the-top retro throwback shooter I've ever seen, and I feel like not talking about it would be doing an injustice because it lives up to the ridiculous name of Turbo Overkill. So some things you should know going in that I didn't. This game, I'm told, was made by one full-time developer and a few part-time devs, which you wouldn't think from the quality and length of the game. I've got about 10 hours of footage for this campaign, and I started off a little before where I'd left off covering it in the roundup. So, to set the scene, Johnny Turbo has a chainsaw leg, and a mechanical army predominantly uses for reloading weapons and smoking cigars. I've jumped back into this game in level 4 because I promise none of the story has really happened yet. Johnny Turbo wasn't born with a robot arm and a chainsaw leg and a cool car with an AI voiced by the incomparable John St. John, putting in his best vocal performance since the Duke himself. No, see, Johnny Turbo got RoboCopped, or you could say Turbo-copped. See, Johnny used to be a good guy before becoming what they call a street cleaner, sort of like a hired mercenary, and he'd been run down by another street cleaner, Ripper, and you can see what his face used to look like on his bounty sheet instead of, you know, this.
You must have known you'd end up on the other side of the barrel at some point, Johnny.
Looks like you're in the barrel today.
Oh god, that's brutal. So let's start off on this level, right? Apple Tree Apartments. Before this, we've had some cool maps, but this one is cool and a reference. But first, I gotta point out Scott's mystical head, the icon of Scott Miller, Apogee founder and one of the MVPs of PC gaming from the 90s. Last seen in this series, probably in a Rot video. Scott Miller came up with the idea of shareware, and maybe it wasn't the intended use of this business model, but as a kid who didn't have much money, being able to play the first episodes of a lot of Apogee games was incredibly important and foundational to my gaming upbringing. Hats off to you, Scott. You brought the company back and published fucking bangers. And Turbo Overkill is the crown jewel. In a very Duke 3D style, Apple Tree Apartments is a reference to the seminal classic Dread, which has Peachtree Apartments as its setting. And it starts off in a, blood sewer? Yeah, okay. The lobby is a pretty faithful recreation. Too bad we don't have any slow-mo. Yet. The name of the game is still shooting and liberal use of the chainsaw leg. Because I already have augments that'll give you health and armor drops from chainsaw leg kills, they tend to be a bit overpowered. So much so that I later turned the difficulty up in episode 3 because it just wasn't hurting me enough. Being able to slide around without a cooldown like the Dash has and grab health and armor is like, damn. I'm able to give you kids a good look at the chainsaw leg because I used it underwater. Here you go. The chainsaw leg is so woven into gameplay that what could have been a simple gimmick is elevated to movement tech. Early on, you'll be chainsawing these techno junkies for health and armor, but the game knows this and throws ones that have explosive barrels in there too. And the dual magnum secondary fire is one of the most useful things I've ever seen in a shooter. Like, forget having to plink away at low-tier enemies across the room. Hold down alt-fire for a bit and they get insta-jibbed, and you do the blow the smoke off the barrel, because while Johnny Turbo can't talk, he can blow. Shotgun, still good. Secondary has an electric blast that fucks stuff up real good. A chain gun slash flamethrower with a smiley face when it has ammo and a frowny face when it doesn't. Take that, Halo and Doom 3. Numbers are math, and math is for nerds. Dual submachine guns for maximum DPS. Just wait until we get the upgrades for this one, kids, and oh, it's so good. And I'm not even talking about the level 2 upgrade that gives you a single more accurate SMG, which seems ass backwards, but just wait. And the middle finger missile launcher from your arm that does massive damage but has a cooldown is, oh yeah. This is obviously more Doom 2016 Doom Eternal than Boom Shoot, but it's so well done. It isn't quite the rock, paper, scissors dynamics of Eternal, as there are only a few enemies that have a weakness to certain weapons, letting you do combat however you like, unless you're playing on some ultra-high skill like I've seen people do where they do the weapon swap to get past cooldowns, and I don't know how people play video games like that, but good for them, they're having fun. Like in this first thing I would call a boss fight with this big mech, right after you get a rocket launcher, you can blow it away with the rocket launcher, which has a shockingly large area of effect. A big boom even for a rocket launcher in a game where your main character has a chainsaw for a leg. These guys weren't even my biggest problems. Those would either be the jumping electric bastards or the, why did you call them that? You try to poison my comments section with horny? Because you're poisoning my comments section with horny. This rooftop and skate park was about where I stopped playing last time because I'd hit a wall. I think this battle has been tweaked since the first time I played it. Or I got better at video games. But more likely it was tweaked later on a patch. But goddamn, look at this. Yeah, that mech's a fairly common enemy now. After the menacingly large apartment building, the game sends you to the rooftops of this massive cyberpunk city, and I was over here like, there's nothing really cool I could have missed when I stopped playing episode 1 in the last level. No way. Until the game lets you pilot Johnny's awesome flying car with machine guns and rockets with little dashboard Sam, who I love, and I want a fucking plush with little suction cups to put on my own car that I don't have anymore. I love him. Throughout episode 1, Sam, the aforementioned AI, voiced by John St. John, is guiding you towards the biocore, which we have to destroy.
Sir, I have located a large signal source in the heart of paradise. It appears each biocore is doing some sort of handshake with this central source. Something by the name of Artifact Zero.
That sounds sinister.
Well, that's the textbook definition of fucked right there.
Very eloquent. Care to elaborate?
That's the exec who is your handler? That's the best I can describe it. It turns out that this cyberpunk dystopia is run by corporations and renegade AI now.
Artifact Zero's the most powerful supercomputer we ever produced. Makes an AI look like an abacus. If Sin gets a hold of it, man, it is lights out for humanity.
Sin is, at this point, the game's main antagonist, a sentient, artificially intelligent virus spreading through the city's systems and having, there's a lot of meat stuff. A lot of meat stuff. It's weird. I shoot these green containers because I can. I'm not sure it does anything, but it makes me feel better.
Bravo, sir. I am now able to locate Artifact Zero's exact position. It will be our next stop.
That was fast. We're on our way, but then, the game finally switches up its levels from cities with a ton of verticality to fighting on top of speeding cars in a tunnel, which is cool as shit. This is the game upping the ante the first time. And you jump from cars to a train, and then off the train onto another train.
All aboard the pain train, sir.
This isn't a vehicle level, this is a 3-vehicle level. This level escalates over and over to a height of gaming excitement. Someone else blows up the train, but you know that train gets blown to hell. And we survive this, it's fine.
An enormous wave of hostiles are approaching your position.
Bring him on! But first, a message from Dad. And it's John St. John. John St. John is playing my dad, and it's like my childhood dream coming true.
Johnny, I want you to know that while I've not been around to witness your growth, please know that my spirit is always with you, embracing you with love and pride. From the moment you took your first breath, my heart filled with joy and a sense of duty to provide you with the tools to nurture the best version of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Daddy Duke. I've waited so long to hear that, and I'm just... So then we get taken down like a bitch by a mech. But then Artifact Zero comes along and announces itself as the big boss of the episode. Shoot it in the eye and, I was almost dead, but Artifact Zero sent me over to a place where I could cheese them. Here's looking at you, dickhead.
What the hell is going on down there? I'm losing signals all over Paradise!
Sir, I'm losing control. I'm afraid, Johnny. I didn't know an AI could be.
Yeah, we're saving Sam. From the car. He's coming along. We love him already after one episode. Let's fucking go!
Oh my god. They won. Sin's controlled Paradise. I think we're going to have to go with the nuclear option. Purge Sin from the source. I'm plotting a course to the nearest starport. And Johnny, good hunting.
So obviously things have gone terribly wrong. The chain on my chainsaw leg broke. This is... Oh, yeah, okay. That doesn't mean the chainsaw leg is broken, as you can see from 10 seconds later. Turbo Overkill has a habit of opening levels with Johnny Turbo doing something awesome that can't quite be conveyed using regular gameplay. This includes kicking a pissing enemy off a ledge, rocket jumping across the entire city, smoking a cigar and interrupting a gaming tech junkie before blowing his legs off with a double-barreled shotgun before tying his intestines to a piece of rebar and kicking him off the building. And there are so many more. So you start episode 2 with some high expectations because this game so far is goddamn incredible. Turbo Overkill is like Hard Reset if Hard Reset wasn't mid, and if it had ADHD that required it to do new shit every other level, like vehicle sections. Unfortunately, our car has been destroyed, which made me very sad.
My nanobots can repair anything almost instantly. Unless that thing happens to be destroyed by an apocalyptic Sin virus event. Yeah. This will take a moment, sir. My suggestion remains. Find the starport and escape Paradise. Once we get to the Vector 4 station, we can kill that virus once and for all.
We've got our orders. We need to get to the starport so we can go to a space station to stop Sin. No word on Sin Reloaded, but I've been told someone stopped that already. Also, can we talk about how I had a plasma rifle in the trunk of my car and haven't thought to bring it out yet? The box says in case of emergency, and I think plenty of times prior to this counted as an emergency. It's a fine weapon, sure. Has some kind of targeting beam upgrade that I barely ever used, and someone with more skill than me can probably do a lot of carnage with. But oh no, wait, there's a shotgun upgrade.
Hey, pal! You look like you could do with a gun!
Yeah, shut up. Go catch a fucking ride, Scooter. Increased fire rate and reduced spread. Huh. Okay. Oh. Oh, it's even better than it was before. It's beautiful! You know, I was having so much fun that I didn't notice and I wasn't gonna count it. But... Episode 2 is when the story of Turbo Overkill really comes into focus. This threw me off when I was playing Episode 1, because I thought there wouldn't be much in the way of a story for this game where a man named Johnny Turbo has a chainsaw leg. When I heard the words chainsaw leg, I assumed there wouldn't be a story, and then bam, a whole face full of Gianni.
Clench your holes, kids. We're entering Paradise airspace.
Video game developers, stop ironically naming your city's Paradise Challenge impossible, gone wrong, gone sexual.
Johnny Turbo's our primary target. Terratech execs have been trying to reach him since the Surge. But wouldn't you know it, that tongueless prick's gone silent.
Been kinda busy over here, and also it's been 5 gameplay minutes since the Surge. I know corporations like to run a tight ship and subsist entirely upon the blood of orphans, but take a look outside. With all this chaos, there must be a surplus of orphans. A positive boon of exploitable orphans, like the cutest little cybernetic street urchins.
Terratech reckon that to mean one thing. The boy's been compromised.
Oh, I've already killed Johnny once. I'm getting really good at it.
Oh, hey, it's her. She Robocopped us. I don't want to get into some kind of Ship of Theseus argument here, but did you really kill Johnny Turbo if he's, you know, up and around and still saw-kicking? It's explained later that a doctor put a temporary brain into Johnny so he could keep going, and he's got a replacement brain that he's been holding on to so he can get a more permanent fix. Also, Ripper, look, I respect you as an artist. You're very talented, but you're not Rob Halford. There are 3 street cleaners after us now. Maw, Ripper, and Jazz come to complete the mission we're still trying to complete.
This contingency thereafter better be worth the price of admission. Just one more data set to go.
Do we let Terratech know that we got the first one?
No, we wait till we've got all the pieces before we proceed.
I think he's been here, eh?
And,
You got it, boss man.
Something clever Turbo Overkill does is have these fairly simple cutscenes in it that are, on the whole, a lot more than you'd expect from this kind of a game made by a small team. The secret is that while there are nice little animation details like Maw's eyes moving, most characters are wearing masks and don't require fancy stuff like facial animations. We're going to deal with Jazz fairly soon in the Toxin Refinery, but first the game shows us one of the few enemies that requires special treatment: shield shotgunners. And you kill them nearly instantly with the secondary blast from the shotgun. I would already be using the shotgun if I could help it because it kicks ass, so I don't really need more incentive to use it. The shield guys now might as well be the tech junkies with barrels since they're more of a liability than the enemies around them. I can't even begin to get into all of the upgrades right now because the number of augments and weapon improvements scattered throughout the game turn you into a murder machine that would make Skynet jealous. I'm struggling to think of footage to show because the game consistently delivers solid combat arena after solid combat arena with nearly frustration-free platforming challenges, mostly because falling into one of the nearly ever-present bottomless pits teleports you back to safety with no damage penalty. Even with annoying spongier enemies in a hard-to-reach place, the player has the ability to dispatch them fairly quickly and move on. And with the added bonus of saying fuck you to that enemy. There's only one enemy I'd really like to say fuck you to more than that, and that's the flying meatballs. I think this game would have been fine without them. They often show up out of nowhere and hassle you and can be dealt with using the chainsaw leg, but you know, they're still tiny nuisance enemies. The visuals and environments are fairly similar when compared to Episode 1, it's just that they've got a more noticeable coat of sin in them.
My ambition is a wave that will roll from this dead moon to the stars and the black beyond.
Yeah, but this is all kind of gross. The first bounty hunter, Jazz, appears at the end of Toxin Refinery, and the game just kind of tells you how to beat him. Because he moves fast with an ability called... Oh, no, you didn't call it that. I have to use environmental hazards and fire to take most of his health down.
That all you got, Johnny Turbo?
Oh, fuck off.
Hold up! I'm gonna fuck you all the way to hell and back!
Truly, dialogue with the soul and wit of the bard himself. I rip his head off, remove his brain, take his chip, and insert it into myself somehow, which gives us... Turbo time.
It's turbo power!
Slow motion and extra damage is cool, but you know what? I don't use it as much as you'd think. It's cool, don't get me wrong, and it's a testament to this game's dense roster of power-ups that the slow-mo and extra damage can take a backseat to other stuff. A couple of levels pass and lull you into thinking that Turbo Overkill is done throwing new things at you, until something like corruption rooms come up, and the game forces you to use specific weapons to get through a battle, which would be an issue if every single one of the weapons wasn't absurdly useful all the time. This room forces me to use the chain gun flamethrower, which is probably my least favorite weapon because of the chain gun spread. Though it was really useful early game, I've since upgraded it so that the chain gun has no wind-up. And then the game gives you a grappling hook that, while fun enough to use, gets infinitely better later with an augment that makes it set fire to enemies that you grapple onto. You don't even need to grapple onto them hard, or really at all, to set them on fire. It borders on pyrokinesis and almost removes any use I had for the other weapon that sets things on fire. Is that not enough? Because there's another completely unique vehicle section.
Sir, we cannot outrun that thing on foot.
Good thing there's an awesome hover bike here that also happens to have a laser cannon minigun and also, coincidentally, fucking chainsaws on the front. Game of the year. Game of all the years. Racing through this massive stage, avoiding the I-beam, marveling at the idea that a small team made this, and that the very few bugs or glitches I found in it were so minor as to be inconsequential. I understand they're reusing a lot of assets here, but look at the scale of it. Good God! When the game says, we're taking you to the outskirts of town, usually it means the next level is going to be themed differently and the only thing between you and there is a loading screen and maybe a cutscene. Nope, Turbo Overkill takes you there. And on the way you pick up the last two weapons of the game. Not the last weapon upgrades, oh no, there's still a few of those, but the last two weapons, which are the Telefrag rifle, a sniper rifle that doubles as a way to traverse the environment in the bloodiest way humanly possible. I underestimated this one when I got it and ended up using it way more late game. Upgrades turn it into a railgun. And then there's the Ion Blaster, which is an orbital cannon that is the game's BFG. And it's great and powerful, but it was about this time that I realized that practically every weapon in this game, when properly upgraded, becomes a super weapon. The twin submachine guns, when finally upgraded, can let you ditch one of them for more accurate fire, and then the one you keep turns into an assault rifle, which is extremely practical and probably does more damage than it should. But it is wonderful. And if we want to talk about ridiculous upgrades that nearly break the game, let's talk about those starting pistol's final upgrade, the Insta-Jibber. You charge it up by shooting things, and then it enters a special mode where, for a limited time, as long as you don't miss, each shot does 1,000 points of damage. 1,000 points! Eventually, we chase down Ripper, the one primarily responsible for us being mostly robot, and as far as I can tell, an unstoppable killing machine, with really, really effective weaponry and cybernetic augments.
Johnny Turbo, as I live and breathe. And I am living and breathing, but you, on the other hand. With all that chrome tech shit, you got more of a little zap and a kind of a buzz than a pulse these days, am I right?
Okay, stop right here. I have something to bitch about in this awesome game, which is the continued debate on whether Johnny is more machine than man, and whether that is a good thing or whatever, right? So I can answer that because I kick Ripper's ass into oblivion. And unfortunately, what happened is that I ran out of space on my capture drive while this was happening, and the end of the fight got cut, so I'm gonna have Katie do a dramatic reenactment. A piece of editing that'll take far longer than replaying the entire section of the game. Love you, Katie. So we're in this big arena bathed in purple light, and Ripper thinks by activating one of those corruption things she's gonna beat me by limiting my arsenal. Unfortunately for her, my arsenal is limited to a telefragging sniper rifle that doubles as a railgun. Does this bitch think she's Zero? Because guess what? I also still have a chainsaw for a leg, and that last bit of her health is shaved off with one of her arms, and a cutscene plays where she jumps off into a bottomless pit to escape, and so she's dealt with, though not dead, and I suspect I'll have to fight her again later. I don't because I think she learned her lesson. Maybe. Don't know, don't care. I'm busy being the baddest motherfucker, debatably alive. After this, it's straight to Maw, the final part of the team set to kill Johnny Turbo, voiced by friend of the show and unwitting Alpo spokesman Gianni Montegrano, and I'd like to bring back the old Gianni counter from that roundup. Here we go. Gotta add a couple since then.
charge for Terra Tech. In the red corner, the Mach Tech powered Maw awaits his challenger.
So Maw...
Johnny Turbo in the flesh.
Stop saying that!
Well, just how much of you is flesh these days?
Yeah, I get it. I got one thing left that's still flesh, and you can have a tug on it if you like.
No, don't tell me. I've got a way of finding out.
Oh, nope, you brought a sword to a gunfight. He has some ranged attacks, but I think they're mostly virtual. He brings us into the Matrix for a couple phases of his boss fight that don't go well for him. I weaken him in the second phase with this overpowered assault rifle, and it ends in a flash when he dashes into me trying to avoid him by chainsaw legging away. Just right into it. That's unfortunate. Honestly, keeping my distance from him and hitting him with the assault rifle was a solid strategy. Enemy projectiles on higher difficulties are significantly faster, and I wonder if that mode that makes the game have 3 times the enemies also multiplies bosses. Anyway, his final phase has a bit more bite, but not enough.
Mark my words. When I return, I'm gonna tear your...
Oh shit! Katie, I think we should put up a spoiler tag here, you know, since episode 3 is coming up, and that's the newest, the one that people may have not played yet. And the story really starts to unfold there with the climax and everything. Later, boner!
Johnny Turbo and Terra Tech have come out on top! What a battle!
I may be mostly machine, but that means I've got balls of steel.
There it is, the starport. We've made it, sir.
Now we can finally escape to— Oh, what the fuck?! No! Bullshit!
I hope you weren't needing that.
You son of a bitch, that's my health pinata whacker! Gianni, you motherfucker! And that's my spare brain! It turns out that the brain and memories is what makes Johnny Turbo not just a collection of robot parts and... Yeah, I guess so, but Maz just gotta fuck that up.
From one professional to another, no hard feelings. Just doing my job.
Yeah, of course.
Though, the job's changed, hasn't it? My roles needed to expand to tackle the scale of the threat. Sin's completely consumed this moon, and it's only a matter of time before it expands beyond our reach. But with this device, their little contingency, Sin can be controlled. Power like that, it's too much for Terra Tech. Can't trust it to corporations.
Right, I can agree with that last part, because they just use Sin to place weird meat tentacles in everyone's house that would dispense algorithm-suggested products before my brain even thought of them. But that isn't the point here. The point is that I want my leg and brain back. So if you can't trust it to corporations because they would abuse that power, what do you plan to do exactly?
Unlimited power. That should be reserved for gods.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna abuse absolute power as an individual. No, that's fine. God damn it.
I cannot have you getting in my way. Your time is up.
So now Gianni is becoming God because otherwise he couldn't be fully omnipresent in the boom shoots. He's in Sprawl. You guys know Sprawl? I don't because I haven't had time to play it yet, but it looks really cool.
Sir, come on. We need to move. Please, wake up.
This is kind of sad.
We need immediate assistance. Is anyone out there? Is anyone reading this?
Seasons pass. I guess we aren't much of a human anymore if we can lie here this long without needing food or water or oil or whatever. But who shows up to save us? Fucking Sin. And now we're getting Strogified again. We're re-Robocopped. We're Robocop 2'd. Although after a disaster like that, I'd argue we've been Robocop 3'd. I actually feel genuine anger at Maw, that dead-eyed dick. Now some kind of techno-god, and I want to make him pay.
Sir, I suspect we are not alone in here. Wherever here is.
Come closer. Closer still. I wish to see you.
Oh, I am all kinds of confused right now.
Welcome to my paradise.
I'd still hit it. Look, you'd all bang Leela from Futurama. This is just more glowy and with a slightly bigger eye. Don't judge me.
Do not fear primitive machines. You both stand before me as friends.
Oh shit, we're in. Hey, baby.
Friends don't abduct friends against their will.
Sam, do not fuck this up for me.
I offer you a choice. Submit to my divinity and live again, or fade into the stars.
Oh, so you're giving me a G-Man choice. Look, I can be submissive to your divinity if that's what you want. I mean, clearly I'm not much to look at.
Our protocols are in alignment. We share a purpose.
You're a virus out to destroy everything. We've got nothing in common with you.
Incorrect. We have the same desire. We do not wish to die.
You got me there.
You're afraid of Ma. He's getting too strong, even for you.
Getting too strong? How long has it been since he sucker stabbed me?
Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's been 2 years since Ma blasted your face into oblivion.
What? I am sick of this garbage planet. First things first, grab an augment that makes me go faster, naturally. And you guys remember how I talked about the regular shotgun getting an upgrade that outclassed the double barrel? Well, now I grab the final upgrade for the old SSG that removes any of the praying when you spray. Pellets that don't hit, stick onto a surface and explode, and also set things on fire. And you know what? This is as good a time as any to talk about Power Fist, a temporary power-up that I think speaks for itself. It takes 2 whole levels to climb out of this fucking junkyard and back to the familiar city taken over by some biomechanical virus territory. It's episode 3. It's the hardest one. It's the one where they've introduced most of, if not all of, the game's enemies and weapons, and you're supposed to know how to use them. Let me take on waves of monsters and then open one of the augment chests and get double check. Double chainsaw legs? Sure, why not? The first one was ridiculous enough. Having 2 isn't pushing the envelope at this point. I've got an augment that makes the chainsaw do more damage to larger enemies, which is cool. It won't do extra damage to the biggest monster so far, which is this goddamn giant meaty thing I have to go inside and destroy big pieces of it. But you know what will? Yes! Yes! Fuck yes!
Our nanobot friends have been busy. I do hope you're prepared for another sky ride.
This isn't really a sky ride, but it'll do until I can shoot all the hearts off this massive not-gore nest. As sad as I am to leave the car behind for the next mission, I can't help but appreciate how we get onto this ship.
Sir, I've been running diagnostics on the dapper new body that Sin has thoughtfully provided you. It seems there are some dormant augments we can activate, but we'll need to find a Titan cell to access them. We should be able to find one on this barge.
Oh, well that's convenient. As long as we're here. You know, I'll also stop by the Doom 2 reference in the spooky basement with TV-headed fodder enemies that make an intimidating introduction, but are still meat for the double chainsaw legs. This place also has an augment called Button Smasher that lets you switch weapons almost instantly, which is pretty useful. Visit the acid pit, then grab the Titan cell to activate my super secret augments. I wonder what those could... Oh, so the ludicrous and over-the-top concept of a chainsaw leg, which was supplanted by a second chainsaw leg, has now been supplanted by having every single limb on Johnny Turbo's body be a chainsaw. There's nowhere else to go. There is no conceivable place for this game to put another chainsaw unless you intend to replace Johnny's head with a chainsaw. And if you do that, is it really Johnny anymore? Alright, this is goddamn ridiculous. Oh, but it only lasts 30 seconds and you have to refill it by doing chainsaw slides, a thing I do as a matter of habit because it gives me health and armor back.
Johnny Turbo. Back for more punishment, I see. Not what I would call a fair fight.
Oh,
I
come
expected
on.
more from you, Johnny. I'm loving this new ability to be so many places at one time. At this point, we're scarcely human, Johnny. Why limit ourselves to mere flesh and bone when we can become so much more?
I don't know, because 5 assholes stink more than one?
I need to consume. I won't stop, Johnny. Can't. Not until I have it all.
Oh, we're doing this again? I have to kill a bunch of his clones?
Skill issue. You're not even worth the bullets.
Oh, I hate him. I hate him so much.
Come on, Turbo. Make me bleed.
I am! God!
Not bad, Johnny. Not bad at all. I'll be seeing you again real soon.
I'm gonna roast him. I don't even remember why I blew up this barge. I think it's just what has to happen in a game like this. Yeah, of course. Finally, we can get off this awful moon. Or not, because the car gets stolen. That's fine. We get a casino level, which is really cool. Actually, my favorite in the game. There are a couple reasons for this. The slot machines everywhere. Didn't win a single one, so that's on brand.
Cheating bitch.
But then there's also this.
Come closer!
Okay.
Stick that hand in me! Splice now!
I'm doing it. I realize I haven't really talked much about the augments. I was waiting for a better time to do it, and I think right now I'll give you kids an idea what I was playing with in the end game. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, Civvy, you didn't get the augment that shoots rockets from your dick hole that turns the game into an HR Giga-esque sexual nightmare? You casual. How could you? Oh my god, what the fuck is that?
You think you're better than me, I need you!
That's the only machine in this level that's paid out. Alright, that's enough screwing around. I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by Maw and Sin.
Space!
Oh, wait, never mind. Jumping around in space with some lower gravity and riding a nuke to redirect it towards the evil iCube thing to save the human military forces is pretty cool.
Is this him? That nuke guy?
No, but my sidekick is voiced by him.
We're on your side, Captain. We're trying to reach Vector 4 and put a stop to this madness.
Maybe so, but you're not getting anything from us. Our ship is beat to shit and our long-range cannons are offline.
I'm getting a little tired by this point. We've been fighting a combination of mostly the same monsters through these arenas for a while, and I'm thinking the game is out of ideas. Which means it's time for an awesome mech section. We board a shuttle, and since we don't read as a human because we're 75% chainsaw, they won't shoot us down. Thanks, Vermilion Forces, you guys are awesome. I hope... Oh.
That's it, sir. We're all that's left. Approaching Vector 4. It's time to end this.
He says this, but like... If this is the end, why am I still playing this game for another 2 hours? Yes, I would argue that Turbo Overkill is just a tad too long, since I have to visit 3 separate but thankfully distinct and unique areas before getting to Maw.
I can see what happens after death. Come, let me show you.
Man, can you not right now? His clones continue to show up sporadically throughout this level, and I'm tired of it. Let's get to the man himself.
It would seem there's a price to pay for this kind of power.
Ma, my guy, where'd all those limbs go? Hey Ma, what do you call a man with no arms and no legs who sucker stabs me after he loses a fair fight? You call him Ma. I bet it's hard to find pants that fit when you're shaped like a burst Vienna sausage. You look like if Rob Liefeld gave up a drawing at the neck. Hey Ma, why the fuck you over here doing evil schemes while glistening like the wrong side of a glory hole? You look like a Cenobite whose torture kink was getting sucked off by a vacuum. Is that blood coming out of your eyes? You look like a Make-A-Wish kid with stage 5 cancer whose last request was to go to a Fall Out Boy concert. You look like you've been pumping iron for 2 years but you skipped everything but Dick Vein Day. Skipped the abs for sure. That's a cute lower digestive tract. Do they make them for fucking human beings or just lanky smurfs who can only pleasure a woman if she sat on his head and taped his mouth shut? You look like if Heisenberg's blue meth was a person and that person was made of assholes. It's setting off my trypophobia. Do you kiss your mother with that faceplate or do you have to pay her extra for that like I do?
The hunger, Johnny. The hunger. I need to consume every fucking thing!
Alright, enough of you, Ma. Let's get this over with. This motherfucker has 5 phases because 3 wasn't enough. I end up using the assault rifle again because of how effective it was, not just in terms of damage output, but also because I have to shoot these targets and spraying bullets over them is the easiest way. I'd say this was difficult, but the game keeps restocking my health and ammo, which I probably don't need, but I appreciate. I have to chase the bastard out of this arena just to fight 4 phases of his ultimate form. Real creative, Ma, a giant spider.
I need more power.
Oh my god, just fucking die already. Oh, Astral Ma? Well, fuck you. How about Astral Circle strafe you with a chainsaw? He keeps teleporting me out between even more phases, and thank god this game is generous with checkpoints, because while I didn't die much, this boss fight is extraordinarily long.
No. This isn't how it was supposed to go. You didn't beat me. You didn't fucking beat me at all.
Yes, I did. In fact, I beat you and your clones, which, going by the game's metrics, means we can update this count here. There we go. About time, too. That was a marathon boss battle, and you'd think the game was over, but you forgot about Sin, who's still out there, and we have to deal with her, too. And I'm trying to wrap this video up, so let's get through it. It's probably the toughest fight because of the high-tier monsters everywhere and the lack of magical health and ammo refills, but it isn't impossible, just really time-consuming. Which is weird when you think about the sections where you have to beat a timer until she takes over your brain. Oh well, our last objective is to fuck shit up.
Johnny frickin' Turbo! You did good, kid. Real good.
Hey, it's Ripper. Ripper's alive.
But look at you now, kid. You don't just kill, you overkill! Turbo!
Okay, that's a little much.
What exactly is it that you want for all your hard work? You want things to go back how they were, before it was all fucked. Well, ain't you a lucky boy, because you know what? I can give you exactly that. You want to be human, we own you, now and for all time. All you need to do is decide. Work for us as our perfected mercenary. And once the job's complete, we give you exactly what it is you desire.
That doesn't sound like much of a choice, but hey, the credits say Johnny Turbo isn't finished yet, so it sounds like there are some sequel plans, which is great, awesome game, although it may be a sin too long.